Did you ever stop and wonder if you could be related to everyone with your last name?
Just think if you're a Lincoln, how you'd be congratulated if Honest Abe were someone you could claim.
To clear up any mystery, just check your family history.
Genealogy's the name of the game. Now some ancestors you'll find you want to hide,
but most of them will fill your heart with pride.
Oh, your family tree, your family tree. Check your genealogy, find who was who and how who came to be. On your family tree.
Welcome, listeners. It's time for the Genealogy radio show from Radio Corcabashkin, the radio station that is keeping you in the loop. And this week's show is all about tracing County Clare ancestry with Paddy Waldron, whom we have in studio today. Paddy, you're very welcome to the Genealogy radio show. And just to tell you about Paddy, Paddy Waldron is a wonderful genealogist and is a legend for Clare genealogy and has a professional reputation, having dedicated many years to excellent genealogy practice. I'm pleased to let you know Paddy has joined the Ancestral Connections UCC Summer School panel this year and will be delivering the lecture How to Use Online Maps to View Where Your Ancestors Lived. Yes, I had to break his arms to convince him to join us down in Cork and take him away from his beloved Clare, but it had to be done. We only have the best in our summer school down in Cork. Paddy has been involved in the National Famine Commemoration in Kilrush in 2013, and his website is www.pwaldron.info, and this will be under his talk today, so you can get a link to his website. Paddy has been an enthusiastic genealogist from an early age, and he's lectured at Trinity College, and he began to publish information on Irish genealogy on the college website back as far as 1994. That evolved through a student group project and collaboration with John Grenham and the Irish Times into the Irish Ancestors website, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, listeners, what a terrific website that is. Around the same time, he encouraged his friend Fiona Fitzsimons, then a history postgraduate, to set up an online genealogical research business, and that enterprise has since evolved into Enniclan, of which Paddy served as a non-executive director. Paddy has lectured widely on his own genealogical research and on research methodology, and has published his genealogical work as Pádraig Óg de Walderha in journals ranging from the Old Limerick Journal to the Ballykiltenan Rural Journal, and he's spoken too for the Thomond Archaeological Society and many other societies as well. Full details are on his personal website. He now lives on the Clare-Tipperary border and was the founding member of the Clare Rewrote Society in April 2006 and has worked as a genealogist available to help guests at the lodge at Doonbeg and also all around Clare. He served as the chairman of SEGO for 2010 to 2011 and was elected as chairman of the Clare Rewrote Society in September 2013. So, Paddy, you're really welcome after that wonderful introduction, I might add. I'm very proud of it. Now, Paddy, what makes tracing Clare ancestors different from tracing ancestors from other counties in Ireland?
Well, the basic principles are the same, but we have some things that make research in Clare easier and some that make it more difficult. And the main thing that makes it easier is the wonderful service we get from Clare County Library through its website, clarelibrary.ie, and through the local study centre with Peter Byrne and his colleagues in Harmony Row in Ennis. And of course, like any library or museum or archive, they're trying to keep us out by putting all the records online so that we don't actually have to come in, get in their way and cause the records to deteriorate by handling them too much.
Well, Clare Library is one of the best in the world for a genealogy resource. I have reiterated that several times. I mean, there's just nothing as good as it in my book, to be honest about it.
There's very few, but Limerick isn't far behind now.
Limerick is very good
too. It's just across the border, and there's a lot of overlap.
I think, yes, I do. I believe you're right there, that Limerick has some wonderful records online as well, and they're such of great use, you know. But when you say different, we say difficult. What difficulties are there, Paddy?
Well, in terms of getting access to the parish registers, Clare is really a bit of a black hole.
Yes.
There are some good parishes which have their own records online, like Ennis and Crusheen. There are some parishes which are very welcoming to anybody who wants to come in and research. But you don't like to be bugging the parish secretary or the parish priest all the time with your questions.
It's also very difficult for our listeners who are abroad, we understand, to get and find the places that they're looking for. Even to find a particular parish might be a very large undertaking for someone who only has 4 days, 5 days when visiting the country. So this is something that I know I'm personally trying to address at the moment, because it's one of the biggest questions I get. Well, how do I get there? And the non-understanding of the difference between civil and Catholic parishes and so on.
Yeah, it's more important to ask first, where did your ancestors live, rather than who they were? Because if you don't know where they were, you don't know where to go to find out who they were.
Exactly. Now, Paddy, what is Clare's relationship with the Irish Family History Foundation?
Well, the Irish Family History Foundation is this loose amalgamation of centres, mostly associated with single counties or parts of counties. And it has a map on its website, rootesireland.ie, where it has recently coloured Clare in green, I think is the colour, to say there are some records. But all that it has for Clare are baptism records, no marriages. It has Parteen, which it always had as part of Limerick because it crosses the county boundary. It has Ennis and Crusheen, which are freely available on other sites. And it has about 4 other parishes over in East Clare. And it has promised us for years more indexes to more parishes, but they haven't appeared yet.
Oh, we could do with them now, couldn't we?
We could.
Time. Time.
My mother was from Mayo, so I have recently been researching that side of the family. And the rewrote.ie website is a fantastic help since it went to an annual subscription policy last year.
I've seen that. I'm absolutely in love with it, to be honest. I think it works out at €25 a month you can do as well, if you so wish, if you don't do the annual, and maybe dip in and out if because what is it apart from the annual, 250 or something?
I think it's 225.
Well, it's excellent value, guys. Excellent value.
And to see what value it is, you just have to look back at how much they hindered research in Ireland with their original pricing scheme, which was €10 for every record you looked up, and then for a long time €5 for every extract you look up, because you don't see an image, you just see an extract done by an amateur in a job creation scheme.
Yes, we have got to get away from that, guys, in genealogy research, the idea of amateurs dealing with the records, because it doesn't serve the wider public well. It might sound nice and sound as if it's a good idea at the time, but I've just come back from the States and they don't do it there like that. They're very professional.
Yes.
And we've got to step up our game here.
And you should notice that the price, which was €10, there is a limit now on the annual subscription, but it works out as 1.5 cents per lookup, where they started out at €10 and €5 per lookup. So that tells us how much we were being overcharged for many years.
Yes, and it also tells us that we have a right to our records, and that this brings people to the country. It makes them want to be interested in coming to visit, and they can come to the wonderful County Clare here and see what we have on offer. But if they know where to find their records and so on. So what does Clare County Library do for genealogists? You know, just to go back to that question again.
Well, it has had its genealogy page on the clarelibrary.ie website for, about 15 years now. It put up the 1901 census for the whole county many years before the National Archives put it up for the whole country. It has indexed all the basic sources, the Tithe, the Plotman books, the Griffiths valuation. If anybody wants to transcribe a parish register or transcriptions of inscriptions from a graveyard, Clare Library will put them up for you. It has an index to the Clare Champion newspaper from the 1930s to the 1980s, births, marriages and deaths. and it's currently starting a project to index the previous 30 years from the start of the Clare Champion in the early 1900s up to the 1930s. It's got the In Memoriam card project, which Clare Roots Society did. It's got its own map system for Clare.
Can you tell us a little bit about that Memoriam project?
That was probably...
What are they, number one? Are they the little cards?
Mortuary cards, funeral cards, different parts of the world, they have different names. A card with a photograph of somebody who has died and their address and the date of death and the age and a few prayers. Everybody has a box of them at home in the kitchen or the sitting room or somewhere.
Yes, and we don't think of them as a genealogy resource, but of course they are a genealogy resource.
They're a priceless genealogy resource. So Clare Roots Society, with the help of the Clare Education Centre, ran a project for the primary schools a few years ago, where we encouraged the primary school children to collect these cards, bring them in and scan them, and they were all put into a spreadsheet and a database, and they're now up on clarelibrary.ie.
What a wonderful project, and very rewarding, you know. Also, Clare Library, I want to refer to the wonderful maps they have online on the Clare Library website, where you can use hotspots to see where the surnames are located in the county. And I have found this invaluable for my own research, and I'm using it quite comprehensively at the moment for a project I'm on. And absolutely fantastic stuff. And it also breaks it down by were they there in the tithe allotment years in 1824 to 1837? Were they there during Griffiths? In that, so you can track people names over time, which can be very, very useful stuff indeed. So I'm very fond of their maps in the Clare Library website. Now, where can people tracing Clare ancestors meet like-minded individuals?
Well, if people are here in Clare or are visiting Clare, the Clare Roots Society, I suppose, as the chairperson, I have to give it the first plug. It has a monthly meeting on the third Thursday of every month in the Old Ground Hotel in Ennis. This day 2 weeks, I guess the 16th of April is our next meeting with Catherine O'Connor, I think, talking about oral history.
And I'll be speaking in May, so I'm looking forward to that.
And we're looking forward to Maurice Gleeson on DNA testing for genealogy in November. And we've a pretty good programme coming up in the coming months.
Yes, the DNA testing will be very interesting indeed. So that'll be something. And can they contact Clare Roots outside of the meeting times? Is there a Clare Roots forum or? There's
a website, clareroots.org. There's a Clare Roots Society page on Facebook. And there are lots of other online places where you can go to chat with other Clare genealogists.
You ran a wonderful conference there in the past, and I'm hoping that you're going to run another conference again.
Well, we're hoping to mark our 10th anniversary in 2016 with a conference, but we haven't announced the dates yet.
Oh yes, well that'll be something to put in your diaries, because I know that some of us around here will be putting pressure on Paddy to make sure that happens, because their last conference was absolutely excellent and very worthwhile attending, and really reached out to, I can't remember, what was the name of the conference again? It was a good title.
Gathering the Scattering or something,
Gathering the Scattering.
The last one was the Year of the Gathering in 2013.
It was the Year of the Gathering in 2013. And
this weekend, actually,
yes,
the first weekend
and it was
in April,
an absolutely
2 years ago.
Excellent set of talks, and really, really enjoyable. And they did reach out to everybody all over the world with their marketing and how they told people about it. And I think that raises the bar for everybody in genealogy and helps us get the word about Irish genealogy, which is very specialised. It's very different to other types of genealogy. You will need assistance in it, and this is what this radio show is trying to do as well. So, like-minded individuals, Clare Roots, and they have a Facebook page and a Facebook group.
There's a Facebook group which grew up independently of the society. There's one for every county in Ireland now, but it's called County Clare Ireland Genealogy, and it has,
yes, that's correct,
1,000 heading for 2,000, maybe over 2,000 members.
That's correct, and it's a very interesting. Facebook groups are really a great way of keeping in touch where genealogy is concerned, because unlike Facebook pages, you can upload Facebook files. You can upload files and documents to Facebook groups.
And you can search the conversations to see whether
Yes,
a topic
you
or
can.
a surname or a place name has been discussed
Yes,
before.
you can, and it's difficult to do that with Facebook pages. I don't find pages anything as useful as Facebook groups. So, what about people listening in to us online who cannot get to events in Clare? Any plans to podcast those old talks you're going to have in Clare Roots and so on?
Well, most of our talks, we do record them, and we get around eventually to putting the recordings online.
Yeah.
But you have to find another hour to listen back and make sure the recording is okay when you get home. So I have quite a few on my iPhone at the moment that I will be putting up. I have a page on Mixcloud where I put these things
Yeah,
up.
I think that this is where people really do make contact with each other, and this is how we're making links all over the world and so on with each other. So people listening in online who cannot get to events in Clare, you're planning on putting up stuff, and there's also past forums and so on. So now the thorny question here, will things be very different when the National Library puts its parish registers microfilms online? And that's planned for June, is it not?
Well, it's planned for soon. And we
Soon.
know in the world of genealogy that soon is a very ambiguous or meaningless word.
Well, June was given me as the date, so I'm going soon is June, so I'm hoping it is June.
We've been waiting for the civil registration indexes that were taken offline temporarily last July, and we were promised they would be back very soon, and they're still not back. So
Yes, there is a problem with data online, apparently, so we do need to, but it would be wonderful if they do have what will the parish registered microfilms tell people?
well, it'll save you bugging your parish priest or save you going up to the National Library to look at the microfilm. You'll have the same images on your computer. At least you'll have a digital version of the image, which hopefully will be of as good quality as the microfilm, which can only be as good as the cameras that made them 50 years ago, and which can only be as good as the very old manuscripts that they were filming. So
Yes,
don't
and they're
expect
all
it all to
different.
be crystal
They're
clear.
all they're all very different. People think that the parish registers are all the same. They're not the same. They were written by different hands, different people, different times.
People say doctor's handwriting is illegible, but I can tell you parish priest's handwriting is much worse.
I agree with you, absolutely, totally.
And handwriting has changed over the centuries as
yes,
well,
it
so you've
has.
got to get used to different little quirks. And most of them are going to be in Latin.
Yes, and
So
this is
go
where
back to your school Latin
this
books.
is where experts like Paddy and the people we have on the show are all going to come in very, very useful, because that's what the skill that's required. But it does mean that instead of being deprived of the links to your heritage, you're not going to be. You could be able to get access to those records, and that is what the name of the game is in these times, to actually make the information freely available. Hopefully you'll still be able to go up to the National Library though and avail of the wonderful genealogy services that they have. They have an advisory service there at the moment which will offer advice, and that's an excellent initiative. So it's not all about isolating you with a computer either. It's about maybe forming the connections.
And they'll just be images. They won't be indexed. They won't be linked to the rootsireland.ie typed extracts. But if you find something in the extracts in rootsireland.ie, that will tell you where to go on the National Library site to see the original.
Excellent.
And I'm sure there will be teams of volunteers around the world getting together to do their own transcription and indexing projects when the images are so easily available.
We might start an indexing project in County Clare too.
Exactly. Well, Clare Roots Society is
As
currently
already-
looking for volunteers for the Clare Champion indexing project.
Fantastic.
So
And we'll
anybody who can get to Ennis and would like to help out with that, get in touch with the society.
So any of you wanting to get your hands dirty and start to look at these things for indexing and want to pick up some valuable skills, please note that Clare Roots are working on that project and are seeking volunteers, because it's a very useful thing to be able to do. Again, can anyone do this that would not be living in Clare?
It's going to be difficult because we're working from the originals and the microfilms. They're not in
Okay.
digital form. I think they
But
could be
maybe
sent
we'll
out.
think of some ways of gaining roles. Maybe somebody, there's always ways of opening things up once you start doing them at all.
Yeah,
One
it
thing
might
can
be
lead
possible
another.
to do it in the other branch libraries around the county. We can
Yes.
certainly talk to the county library about that.
Yes.
If you want
I
to do
know.
it in Kilkee, you shouldn't have to go to Ennis
No,
to do
because there is we have wonderful libraries, and I'd like to see them supported with this type of project and project work and have people that were never ever going to be guilty of going, oh well, we'll close that library, nobody's using it anymore. People look at everything online. They don't bother using the library anymore. That couldn't be further from the truth. So one of our final questions, so we have a few minutes, so we're not in any pressure, is there a DNA database in which people with Clare roots can look for relatives?
I wish there was. There are DNA databases. There are people with Clare roots looking for relatives in them, but we need them to be much bigger. So
do people not sign up for DNA testing in Ireland?
People are slow, and the companies try to, I'm afraid, like other people, milk the market here by charging a lot more to send a kid to Ireland than to send it to other countries. I thought it was only
costing €80 now with Ancestry.
Oh, it's not. No, Ancestry is $99, but it's something like 125 sterling. They have just launched in Britain and Ireland.
Yeah.
And instead of the number being lower because of the exchange rate, the number is a lot bigger. So there's a big premium for the British and Irish, and they've just done the same in Australia, I think, and New Zealand in the last few days. So if you have a friend in the US and if they're coming to Ireland, get Ancestry to ship the kit to them. They can bring it over, take your DNA sample back, and mail it back from the US to Ancestry. The one company that doesn't really overcharge for shipping is Family Tree DNA. 23andMe also has very high shipping charges for sending anything outside the US.
That's very good to know. And this is we're interested in this type of information because genealogy, we don't want it to become an expensive, elitist, hobbyist sport. We want it to become accessible to people who need to find out this information. But what can the DNA database, you have to tell me about DNA, Paddy, because I know nothing about it. I will be at Morris's talk because I haven't a clue.
Well, there are 4 basic types of DNA which are inherited in different ways. And the one that genealogists first got into was Y-DNA, which comes from father to son, like a surname, or like the farmer land traditionally in West Clare. So your Y-DNA will tell you whether you're related to other people with the same surname. So, for example, I'm a Waldron. I can only go back to my great-great-grandfather who was born in about the 1820s. He was born in County Roscommon. There are Waldrons of Irish and Norman ancestry in Ballyhaunis, County Mayo, going way back. There are Waldrons in Cavan who came in with the Ulster plantation in 1609. I don't know which side I'm descended from. But if I could find enthusiastic descendants from the Mayo side and from the Cavan side and compare my Y chromosome, my Y DNA with them, I'd figure out where my Waldrons, the Irish Waldrons, are the planters.
Okay. Oh, that's very interesting. And what were the other things with DNA, like you said, Y-DNA?
Then you have mitochondrial DNA, which comes down the other side of your pedigree chart from mother to daughter. Only men have a Y chromosome. Only men can do that test. We all have mitochondrial DNA from our mothers. Okay. So it's a little more tricky to trace the maternal line because the surname changes in every generation.
Okay.
But the mitochondrial DNA does not change. So you can use that to find people who come from the same direct female line as you and your mother and your maternal grandmother and so on back along.
So that's again a very useful way to group your surname and group where you're from and what clan or maybe what kinship group you're belonging to within Ireland. So there's a lot of tying up. And do you think it'll increase, Paddy, that people will actually...
What's really taken off is the bit in between the direct male line and the direct female line is the autosomal DNA. You have 2 sets of autosomes, as they're called, autosomal chromosomes. Everyone has one from his or her father, one from his or her mother. And the one that you get from your father is roughly 50% from your paternal grandfather, 50% from your paternal grandmother. The set you get from your mother is roughly 50% from the maternal grandfather, 50% from the maternal grandmother. So each of your grandparents gives you roughly a quarter. Each of your great-grandparents gives you roughly an eighth. Out to about third cousins, you're going to share autosomal DNA with all your relatives. It gets a little bit random and broken up for 4th and 5th cousins, but a lot of your 4th and 5th cousins you'll also share it with. So that's the cheapest one. It's come down to $99. It probably won't go any cheaper.
And it's useful.
And it's useful as long as the database with which your autosomal DNA is being compared is big enough and has enough people from the same part of the world that your ancestors came from.
Yes.
So we'd love to get more Clare people sending in their DNA samples to the 3 big American companies and to the third-party DNA sites,
Okay.
so that we all find some of our 3rd and 4th and 5th cousins in there and can compare the family stories. And I've had great success.
Lovely.
But I've also had frustration because a lot of the people who do it are adoptees and descendants of adoptees who've no family tree, and DNA is the only way they can go to trace their roots.
Well, that's very interesting indeed, Paddy, and thank you for such a succinct explanation of that. And Paddy, what are your plans at the moment? What are you at, or what are you doing? And just to wind up our show today, you doing any talks coming up, or are you taking a break until the autumn?
I wish I was taking a break, but you talked me into going to Cork at the end of June. There's talk of something in Carrigaholt around the same time. May I have a friend from Washington State who comes over with a group of students from Washington State University every year. I'll be giving a talk to them down in Tralee.
Are you going to go up to Stokestown to the Famine Summer School? There's a wonderful summer school planned up in Stokestown, I believe.
I have it in my diary, but
I
I
have it
haven't
in my
decided
diary.
yet whether I'm going or not.
I'm going to get somebody. I promised somebody from there to ring them on that, because I think people would be very interested in knowing all about that. And what we try to do with the summer schools is get people to come to Ireland and, share their knowledge and get that interaction going.
There's 70 million members of the Irish diaspora out there.
Exactly. And
there's
we'd like them.
probably 100,000 members of the West Clare diaspora around the world that we'd like to invite back.
Exactly. Now, to conclude, all the shows are now podcasts, so you can gain access at the Radio Cork Bashkin website, rcb.ie, and there's a link to the Genealogy radio show. Thanks for listening today, and tell your friends and relatives about the Genealogy radio show, keeping you in the loop at Radio Cork Bashkin here in Kilkee. So it would be great if you can tell your friends all about it. And goodbye for now. Slán go fóill. See you next week at the same time.
Did you ever stop and wonder if you could be related to everyone with your last name?
Just think, if you're a Lincoln, how you'd be congratulated if Honest Abe were someone you could claim.
To clear up any mystery, just check your family history.
Genealogy's the name of the game. Now some ancestors you'll find you want to hide,
but most of them will fill your heart with pride.
Oh, your family tree, your family tree. Check your genealogy, find who was who and how who came to be. On your family tree.